Hello and welcome. My name's Dr. Elise Hunk and I'm one of the early childhood lecturers here at RMIT. And I'm going to talk you through this brief explanatory video about mentoring a professional experienced student from RMIT in early childhood. If you have come to this video, it is most likely because you will be hosting one of our early childhood students at your centre or your service, and for that we want to most sincerely thank you. Professional experience is usually the highlight of most students' time at university, and certainly it's a practical application of skills and learning that we can't provide without you. So thank you so much for taking our students, and I hope that you find this video helpful. In terms of giving you a little bit of background, we thought it might be useful for you to know what a student must do before they come to placement. Sometimes we know there can be mixed messages about how much preparation or how much assistance students are given. So we would recommend that you locate and read what we call the PX, which stands for Professional Experience, the handbook. A copy of this handbook is sent to every service that takes a student, so there should be one somewhere, perhaps in your service email or with your management. And the PX handbook really is a very comprehensive outline of everything that students can expect and will happen when they're on placement, including the RMIT policies. So if you can locate one of those and have a look through it, you'll be completely up to date with everything that the student's been told. In addition, before students are able to commence professional experience, we do require that they complete what we call a placement competency quiz, and also that they will have attended a course-specific briefing. In addition to that, we would also expect that the student will come to visit you prior to beginning their placement, because this gives them an opportunity to provide you with the Working with Children check that they must have, also to complete the acceptance form, which is just that sign-off that yes, you'll take the student and yes, you have agreed on which days and times and so forth. If for whatever reason you think that these things have not happened or you've got any questions, please contact our Professional Experience Office. And you'll be able to find that easily if you Google the School of Education PX office, or if you have a look in that handbook, you'll find the contact there. I suppose the takeaway message from this slide for you, though, is that students should not be commencing professional experience unprepared, nor feeling or reporting as though they haven't been prepared by the university. Because there are these steps in place, you can rest assured that they should be up to date and understand what they need to do. While students are on placement, they're going to work through a number of things, but one of the key areas that comes up as a bit of an issue time and time again is attendance. Students are required to attend 7 hours per day. This isn't a CEQA requirement. 7 hours per day can be signed off on as 1 day of completed placement. So it's not possible, unfortunately, for a student to complete 5 days on one day and then 5 hours on one day rather, and then 10 hours on another day and sign those off as being 2 days. It must be a minimum of 7 hours to qualify as a 1 day sign off. Doesn't necessarily mean that the student needs to be with children, doesn't need to be 7 hours of contact time, and we would expect and appreciate our students to be given some planning time as well, which is something they can talk to you about, but it does mean that there needs to be some discussion there around how they're going to spend those 7 hours. Any days that a student is sick or unwell do need to be made up. Really important is that students cannot be paid and they can't undertake work at the service while they're doing professional experience. Once they're finished, you might like to talk to them about employment opportunities, and I'm sure they'll be very happy to have that conversation with you. But ethically, whilst they're on professional experience, they are a student only and they can't be paid or undertake any paid employment. Students are expected to manage their assessments. That's something that they'll need to talk to you about, but it is something that they need to take responsibility for. And there is also an expectation from us that has been communicated that students will be involved in more than just their assessment tasks. So we would expect them to be involved in most aspects of the classroom life, and that they will increase that involvement as the placement goes on. One other thing to keep in mind is that while our students are on placement, their RMIT mentor tutors will be making contact with them, either by visiting, in which case you'll be involved, or perhaps a phone call, in which case again they may ask to speak to you, or it might be that there will be online meetings happening behind the scenes. So what can you expect from an RMIT student on placement? We would expect that our students would talk to you regularly about their progress and that they would actively manage that progress. This can be more difficult for some students than others, depending on things like personality and level of anxiety and so forth. But we would hope that the student would be checking in regularly with you about their progress. We would expect they would have a good attitude, that they would show enthusiasm, they would be respectful and come ready to learn. We would also expect that if you were providing students with feedback, that they would be responding to it. You can also anticipate that students will ask for what we would call a mid-placement review, which means that they have a form to fill out, always a form, where you'll take some time together just to sit down and talk through what's going well and what needs to be worked on. And this is to ensure that there aren't any surprises at the end of the placement. It can be difficult to communicate bad news, particularly for all parties involved, and it can be difficult sometimes to communicate the gravity of some of the messages that we're giving to students. And the mid-placement review is really there so that they can get to the midway of their placement and get a really strong sense of what they've been really successful with and what perhaps is not going so successfully and what they need to do, and that's really key, what they need to do to show you and whoever else they're working with at the centre that they're making progress. We also would expect that students have minimised other work commitments. This is a really important one because we know that it does come at a cost for the students, but there is an expectation there that while RMIT students are on placement, that they are committing themselves to the placement. They're not trying to juggle evening work commitments or other things like that. And we would also expect that you would be seeing progress and a willingness to learn. So if at any point you feel like you're not seeing those things from your RMIT student, they would be things that you could red flag, so to speak, and you might want to think about contacting an RMIT mentor tutor about, or talking to the student about. And I'll give you some information in just a moment on where you can find that assistance. In terms of what we would ask of you as a placement mentor, there's a few key things I think that can really help cement a good relationship between mentor and mentee. One of them is that you take just a few minutes to consider the stage that the student is at. I know it's very difficult for a mentor to know exactly where to place their expectations. But one of the things that you could talk to the student about is whether they're at the beginning, the middle, or the end of their qualifying degree. You could also talk to the student about what their background is. For example, have they studied in Australia before? Have they studied education before? Have they worked in the sector before? And you could also talk to them about how they would like to manage feedback and communication. And by manage, I mean things like, would they like to meet? What are their expectations? How often would they like to meet to talk with you? How would they like the communication to be recorded, if at all? And these are, of course, things that you can have input in yourself. And then there's been some clear guidelines established from the beginning so that both you and the student know that there are some mutual expectations there and you know what to expect. Broadly speaking, characteristics of a good mentor-mentee relationship can include things like clear and open communication, mutual respect, encouragement, space to make mistakes. It's really important, I think, that we are communicating to our students that learning is something that we do forever, including them, and that whilst they don't need to be perfect, what we want to see is that there's enthusiasm and progress. So mistakes are okay because it means someone's had an attempt at something, And then there's a process of critical reflection to look at what needs to change next time. One last point of advice would be to call on support early on if you think that it's needed. We find that it's often much easier to work through concerns or issues in the beginning than it is at the end. Of course, because then there is time to sort out whatever might be happening and put in place supports for the future. So if you have general inquiries, here's the list of people that you can come and talk to. The first one is the RMIT mentor tutor. They've been assigned to your student, so you can contact them as a first port of call, and if for whatever reason they're not able to help you or they think that the issue needs further management, then they will escalate up that chain there. And all the details of how to contact these people are in the PX handbook. One other thing to keep in mind is that if there is an urgent issue or an incident that you believe to be urgent, there's just a slightly different process for getting in contact with us. Of course, the RMIT mentors and course coordinators, they've got other commitments, but if there is an urgent incident, we ask you to please contact the PX office, who are more available and able to be more responsive in the moment, and they will then take responsibility for progressing that incident on. So I hope that's been helpful information for you today. I'd like to finish by thanking you again for supporting our students and our early childhood program here at RMIT. We value all of our industry partnerships and the centres that take the time to mentor students. So most sincerely, we appreciate hearing your feedback and working with you in the future. All the best.